or a cough button. Why is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night on my desktop? Because I was playing it. The better question is, why is there a backup folder right next to it? Just in case I lose my Bloodstained save. Alright, everyone let me know if you can't hear I ain't enough and I'll turn her up. Alright. Let me bring up... Okay, so which game do you want to do first?
Let's do Elden Ring.
Okay. Let me find my clips here. Alright, here we go. Elden Ring. You go. I got nothing to say about this one. It was alright.
I felt really differently about it at different times. Like,
Yeah,
when it first came out, and every conversation anyone had would come back to it, and it was the new hot shit, it was amazing.
Right.
And then, by the end of the first playthrough, I just wanted it to be over, and then the Elden Beast was there, and I hated everything about it. And then, after doing the Deathless stuff and kind of learning where everything was and how the game works, I started to appreciate it again.
Yeah, and it's an easy game to feel a lot of different ways about, because it takes about, like, a quarter of your life to get through it.
Yep.
It's way too long. That's my summary of it. There's a lot of really good stuff, but not enough for as long as it is.
It's interesting that the Halig Tree was a late game area that actually was good and interesting compared to how samey, like, Consecrated Snowfield and stuff felt.
I agree with that about the Halig Tree, but a lot of people hate it because it's a platforming Souls area.
You've got a jump button, it's fine.
Well, you've got a double jump button half the time. Not in Halig Tree, obviously, but...
I would actually never do platforming on Torrent because I hated the turning around and falling off ledges.
Well, then get good, as they say.
Nope.
No,
I don't know.
I agree that, like, after replaying it and, like, getting sort of more familiarity with the regions and the enemies and just the visual design mostly in each area, it's definitely grown on me as far as how much the effort they put into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, there are some really fun bits, like Radahn is great, both in execution and in flavor and everything.
Yeah, did you ever do Radahn solo, or did you always summon?
I did it solo, but it was on the Jumping R2 run. My thought was I would play with just a two-handed melee weapon and do everything. And that would force me to, like, learn the entire game, but you don't need to learn shit because you're just jumping R2 everything.
Yeah. Well, I had the polar opposite experience because my second run through was the bow only run.
And there's yep.
Yeah, there he is.
Radigan.
Yeah. It was fun up until that point. There were a couple, like, friction points, but mostly it was really interesting to see just how viable such a silly thing was compared to other Souls games, really.
Did you end up just doing the jumping quickshot stuff?
Oh, for Radigan?
No, just in general.
Oh, no. Actually, there's, like, a lot of variety. I didn't just do, like, small bows. I did bows, great bows, and then I technically let myself do throwing items because it was mostly just to try out things that I hadn't used before, but I wound up not using throwing items at all, really.
Makes sense.
But just between short bows, long bows, and great bows, there's a surprising amount of just mechanical diversity that you can pull out. For example, Radigan's a nightmare, but it turns out Elden Beast just absolutely melts to Rain of Arrows from Radahn's Great Bow. Nice. It just instantly nukes them. Like, I didn't even have a second attempt on that. the tool system in Sekiro and tacked on stealth elements in that one. Yeah, Jiren's listing off all the things that were put into Elden Ring from other games, and that's kind of the core of Elden Ring. Is it's all of the post PS3 From games kind of melded together.
I liked the theory that Sekiro deflects were going to be in the game, and that's how they designed Malenia, and then they just took out deflects and didn't change her at all.
That makes sense, because I feel like they've done stuff like that in other games, where there's always like at least one super obnoxious thing, and then you think about it a little bit and you go, you know, if they had like just changed one thing, this wouldn't have been a completely nightmare. But
Yeah.
yeah, the deflect thing is interesting because I actually played a DS1 mod that added deflects back in. So basically there's like a timed element to all of your blocking. So if you block right before an enemy an attack hits you, then it deflects it, and you basically get no stamina loss and no health loss, even if you're doing it with a weapon.
Does it have a kind of posture break thing too?
No. It's pretty hacked in. All it does is basically reduce the amount of stamina damage you take, and
Gotcha.
let you, basically have 100% physical deflect if you have good timing. Which, it was really fun going through that run and just fighting bosses differently than you always fight them. Because you can just kind of get in stuff's face. It felt a lot more like Sekiro, which I think was the intention. On a similar note, I'm playing through Elden Ring again. Another gimmick, I'm trying to use the weapon sorceries, like the melee sorceries that summon a big weapon.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was playing through, used them a little bit on my first playthrough, and I thought, these seem like they would almost be viable, and they seem like they are mostly. I think the scaling's not going to hold out for in-game, but in order to spice it up, I downloaded a mod called Dark Moon or something like that, which is basically a copy of another mod that somebody else made, and it just adds a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things it changes is the evasion. It gives you the Bloodborne sidestep backstep evasion.
That's cool.
Well, it's cool, but it's way too far. It takes you way too far, and it reminded me of the mod I played for DS2 that increased the distance on your rolls, but it just meant I would roll off of cliffs constantly. And I keep like backstepping way too far.
I really enjoyed that DS3 mod that just put in blinks for everyone.
Oh, which one was that? Was that Convergence?
Yeah, Convergence.
Yeah, that was fun. I thought Convergence was fun. It wasn't good, but it was like a fun gimmick run.
Oh, absolutely. And they tried to have summons in, and they worked very poorly, but it's still a good time.
I don't remember the summons at all. I was going to play through the Pokemon DS3 mod, where you like capture enemies and then you can summon them as familiars or whatever. But it looked like it was kind of a pain to get working. So what did you think of the combat in general, jumping R2s aside?
I read somewhere that it's not a game where the enemies will attack and then let you hit them in neutral. It's more like a fighting game where you need to kind of weave your attacks over and under and through what they're doing. And I kind of like that idea, even if it was frustrating in practice sometimes.
Kind of. From, honestly, has never been great at action. And their games have been angling more and more towards action since Demon's Souls, I feel.
Yeah.
And, there's some outliers. There's some times they've done it really well. Sekiro, pretty much the only real, complete package as far as that goes. But I liked all of the new stuff that they add from the action side. It just doesn't all go together that great.
How do you mean?
Well, I think part of it has to do with the fact that it's an open world, and so your progression is really open-ended. And the game's also extremely long, which means the progression arc is also extremely long. For people who don't know, your regular weapon upgrade path goes to plus 25, and that's not a inflation, really.
And I think that's really fucked up because you get like enough materials to upgrade 2 regular weapons in the course of your playthrough.
Meanwhile, the upgrade path for like unique weapons is completely different. It only goes to plus 10, but it scales like 10 times as fast. And you also
get a million of them.
Yeah, you get enough to upgrade basically every unique weapon in the game that you ever find. It's absolutely ridiculous. Because the other really cool thing that they added is the Ash of War mechanic, which is you can put weapon arts onto regular weapons and just swap them around and really play around with your build. And that's a great thing, except for the fact that you can't upgrade more than one regular weapon in a playthrough without a ton of grinding.
Yeah, if the materials were reversed and you could just have a bunch of sideboard weapons and have a holy thing for skeletons or whatever, I think that would be great.
Which I think has always been a real high point of your first playthrough of a Souls game. The fact that you kind of build out an arsenal of tools for different things, like especially in Dark Souls 1, you've got the, like the catacombs with the resurrecting skeletons, and you can go get the Divine Ember, or you can go get the Occult Club and downgrade it, or just go past them, try and steamroll through them. And this has some of that, but again, the problem is that since it's an open world, each one of those little tools is going to be hidden away in some side dungeon among dozens of other side dungeons that you may or may not ever find.
Yeah, that was rough getting on the first playthrough, just like seeing in dungeon and wondering what stupid summon or weapon that's not for your build you're going to get at the end.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that when you're doing replays and you feel like you can just go ahead and look shit up, that's so much nicer because you get to skip 99% of the side content. Carwash is bringing up the he really liked the invasion stuff, and I didn't really engage with that at all. Did you?
I did not. I love invasions and PvP in the older games, but that, like they said, you can't invade people that are just playing. They have to be like a gank set up for you.
Yeah,
it just did not seem fun.
Yeah, the opt-in invasion is a terrible idea, and
I will say, it's cool for playing on like my Deathless run. I would have normally played offline, but I got to play online and see all the messages and bloodstains and stuff, and that was a nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I always play offline my first playthrough anyway, so I'm not really affected by that kind of stuff.
I played offline my first playthrough because I disconnected every 5 minutes otherwise.
Yeah. I don't know. Everybody likes the bloodstains. Everyone likes the messages. I just think it's kind of distracting, usually, from what I consider to be a really fun game to explore.
You think it, like, gives away too much?
Not even that. It's just... It's too much. Like, I don't really care where people are, like, dying a lot when I'm first going through something like this.
Makes sense. What did you think about the like instant automatic dodges anytime you would throw a knife or use a projectile?
Oh, you mean the widespread and very obvious input reading by everything in the
Yes.
game? Uh,
Yes, that.
it was really, really bad, and the people that always jump in, just trying to run cover for From Software, saying, "Oh, it's not actually input reading because there's this one step in the
Yeah.
programming where it passes the information onto this other part of the AI." It's really, really obvious. It's really obvious at certain points in all the other games, and that's just how AI works. If you're doing a boss fight, you have to have some kind of reactivity, but it's really, really poorly concealed in this. Like
And
I think the god skins are probably the most offensive case of it, because there's nobody who doesn't play that and just go, "Oh, every time you drink the flask, they throw a fireball at you."
I saw a thing, you can actually force the fireball by mashing triangle, and it input reads that as like an action to punish.
Huh. Well, my favorite one is one of the Knights Cavalry that crosses a bridge somewhere. I
Yeah.
think in Caelid, you can jump up onto this like little overlook and just constantly chug your flask and make him so frustrated that he jumps off the bridge trying to get to you. Which is always fun, just kind of weaponizing the pain in the ass back on the enemies.
Yep.
Yeah, looks like Sheaslup's bailing out. Uh, yeah, the input reading, it's annoying. It doesn't ruin the game, but it is really annoying, and it's frustrating when you're struggling with something and you keep choking on it. I just saw a clip that reminds me of another big issue, which is the fall damage.
Yep.
Which
Yeah.
I'll try and explain it kind of succinctly for people who aren't aware of it. Fall damage in all the FromSoft games is, well, aside from Sekiro, I guess, is a pretty big deal, and you usually have a couple ways to mitigate it. And they've done the calculation for how much damage you take and how far you can fall before dying completely differently every single game, pretty much. And in this one, they've done it in the most annoying way possible. There isn't fall damage for... It's like 36 feet or something of falling, and then the last 4 feet, you take a little bit of damage, and then if you fall like 40 feet, you instantly die. So there's like this tiny window where you fall and take damage, and I assume you could probably go through most of a playthrough and never actually take damage and feel like it's just a fairly arbitrary binary. And
Yeah.
the worst thing about it, the thing that pisses me off to no end, is that your horse has a double jump, but the second jump has no effect on the game calculating fall damage or death from falling. You'll completely stall out all your momentum, doing the little hop at the end, like in every other game where you betray physics. You do that little hop at the end and you land from like 2 feet up and you just fall over dead. It's amazing.
It's rough.
Were there any other like weird quirks that ruined the game for you?
I got really annoyed at being stuck in combat and not being able to like look at my map because there was a dragonfly
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, the dragonflies are also great. They just zip around and like spin around so fast that if you lock on, like the camera will make you motion sick, and you can't ever hit them with anything. And then just out of nowhere, they'll zip in and bop you on the back of the head.
For 3 damage.
Yeah.
It's very unnecessary.
It's excellent when you're in the fight with something real, and then a dragonfly shows up and bonks you out of an attack, and you die.
I have a note that the refill scarabs weren't used well. They could have been like used to extend your exploration as you went through a dungeon, but they only really existed in the open world where you get refills for free anyway.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's another. It's sort of like in Death Stranding, where there's these mechanics to let you kind of on site procurement, or, you know, it's like that with the stuff that you collect from the environment to craft stuff too. It reminded me a lot of like the crafting stuff in the Monster Hunter games, where it feels like there are these systems put in place to that would only make sense if the game world were much bigger and you had less ability to just teleport around. And I mean, I don't know what to say except like make the game world 3 times bigger, but I don't want that for Elden Ring. Yeah, a lot of that stuff just kind of feels pointless. Like, the crafting system is an interesting idea.
On my latest run, I tried using like fire bombs and stuff, but it's so much of a pain in the ass to keep them topped up and like deposit the ones you want to switch to holy bombs or whatever, that it just ended up being something that was better avoided.
Yeah. And it's a big disappointment too, because Salt and Sanctuary, I think, actually nailed how you do consumables in a game like this.
Yeah.
The way it handled it is there are different covenants that you can find and join, and they do a bunch of different things. One of the things they do is they change the way your Estus flasks work. So each faction has its own style of Estus flask, and like one is this really slow regeneration that's actually really nice. If you expect you're gonna be taking a hit or two during a fight, you can eat it in advance, and then you'll have like constant regen. Another one is more like a regular Estus flask. You know, you eat it and it fills up a decent amount pretty quick, and so on like that. But another thing that they do is each one has little missions that you do. Basically, you just turn in like drops from specific enemies that they want you to kill. And once you rank up through that, you get a choice to unlock some more things to start with every time you rest. So you can opt for more Estus flasks, more Ashen Estus flasks, or every faction has its own consumable type. So like the forest people faction has poison throwing knives. And so if you rank up and you go, oh, I want a stack of poison throwing knives, every time you rest, you'll get that stack of poison throwing knives as consumables that constantly replenish.
Yeah, I dig that.
And there's
it reminds me of that. Oh, God.
There's other ones like weapon buffs and stuff like that, but what does it remind you of?
There really weren't covenants at all in this game, huh?
No, there were the Great Runes, which I feel like was kind of what they were trying to replace it with, but all the Great Runes also suck, except for Godric's. Which is another huge missed opportunity, because they have stuff like the Bloodborne Rally system is back, as a Great Rune that is worse than Godric's.
And you can't get it till you have beaten the secret boss anyway.
Yeah. There's the Great Rune that gives you a big chunk of max health. There's another Great Rune that I think gives you a slightly less big chunk of max health and some max stamina. And then there's Godric's Rune, which gives you all that and more. It gives you like 40 levels worth of stats.
Yep.
And it's the first one you'll get, probably. Everyone's liking the emoticons right now.
That one always fucked me up. I would like do an NPC invasion or something, and then my rune would be turned off, and I would be slow rolling without being able to cast my spells.
Yeah. That's always annoying when you're like relying on humanity, or in this rune arcs to do something. that's not a new thing, but it's really disappointing, I think, that the rune arcs weren't better in general. Because you go through so much effort that it's such a big deal getting them. And all the bosses are so unique, and then the rune arcs, they're like, I don't know. You get
Have
some
some
health.
stats.
Yeah, you get some health.
Yeah, if they were all like interesting functional changes, like maybe one slowly replenishes health over time, and
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'd want something even better. I'd want something like modes that nobody understands or uses. No, I would like to see more stuff like the Rat Covenant or something like that. I mean, you have 10 million dungeons in this game. You ought to at least give one up to the players to set traps or something.
Do you think we're gonna get a DLC with any more interesting stuff?
We're gonna get a DLC. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be more interesting. I mean, honestly, I think... I don't know. I'm torn on this because I feel like that they have to make more of this, because it's just been a success on an order of magnitude more than they've ever experienced. And no matter how much they say, like, oh, we don't want to keep doing the same thing, they made like 8 Dark Souls games if you count them all up.
Well, they'll do Armored Core next,
Yeah, well,
then come back.
I've never played an actual Armored Core game, so I don't have any excitement for that. The trailer looked cool, but it also, as much as they said it's not going to be a Soulsborne game with Armored Core, it kind of looked like it would be. I don't know. Are you excited for Armored Core?
I've also never played it, but it looks cool and Patches is there, so I'll give it a shot.
No, we don't know that Patches is there.
He's gonna be there. How could they not put Patches in?
No, they didn't put the Moonlight Greatsword in Sekiro or Patches, so...
I guess, yeah.
That was the last game that wasn't just Dark Souls again. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much to talk about with Elden Ring, but also at the same time not a whole lot.
I did like on my third run, once I really understood everything, just kind of looking around the world and saying, I don't know how to describe it. It's like they used vantage points and knowledge and map awareness as a reward in some cases.
Yeah, there's a stunning amount of thought put into the placement of things and just the layout of the game world in general. And the problem is that none of it really affects you until you've already played through the game a couple times and recognize things that are out of place and can think of why they would be like that. Because when you first play through the game, again, the problem is it's an open world and you're just kind of going kind of aimlessly. And so you'll run across one of the Dragon Knight guys out in along a road in the middle of nowhere. And when you play through the game a couple times, you go, oh, this is a guy from Lindell. He's out on this road. There's this other group of enemies over in this direction. And you can piece together a story. When you're playing through it your first time, you just run into a completely out of scale enemy in the middle of nowhere. And he doesn't even drop anything good.
And he's just recolored from a out of scale enemy you fought somewhere else.
Yeah. What did you think of the progression besides the open world stuff? The fact that you can take the shortcut up here to Volcano Manor. That's really bizarre.
I thought it was... So it's really cool. You get so much freedom to go into Altus Plateau and explore all that right away if you want.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of frustrating that there's cool stuff that's locked away. You can't get the Jar Talisman until you have finished Paramazula and done a really stupid quest line. That would be fun to have early, and I don't know.
Are you talking about the shard from Alexander, or...?
No, you get the shard from Alexander, and then you give his guts to the Jar Barn, and then you get an item that makes your fire bombs better, and at that point, you're not using fire bombs.
Oh, right, I forgot about that because that was one of the NPC quests that they added after the game came out.
Oh,
Yeah, they added it. They made a whole big deal about a new NPC quest in Jarburg. And I went there and like on my end of the game file, and I had to spend no shit like half an hour just walking back and forth between that jar and the save point to like constantly refresh his dialogue to get him to go through each stage of his quest because I had obviously done everything tertiary or like parallel to it.
yeah.
Um, and so that was really annoying, and I hated that guy, and I never even looked at the jar thing. I think.
But yeah, the amount you can explore for the open world game is good. For progression in general, I don't like how much enemy damage increases by the end of the game. And you
Yeah,
just get two shot by anything unless you're really stacking defense.
vigor check. I mean, on the one hand, I like that this is pretty much the only Souls game where you're expected to have the obnoxiously long health bar that you see in all the PvP videos of a
Yeah.
guy just like in full Katarina armor, just standing in an elevator or something. Yeah, the vigor check thing is pretty annoying because it's at a certain point, like the game goes on so long that you just cannot survive a single hit without investing like 30 points into vigor.
Yeah. And you can get like 90% fire resist or whatever, but that's not going to happen on your first playthrough.
Right. I didn't even pay attention to the resist stuff because I never pay attention to the resists in these games because they never scale well unless you're like looking up some weird like quirky stack thing that
Yeah.
they probably didn't even intend. Like defense and resistance and anything that's not dodge rolling through attacks is really depreciated in the series as it's gone on. And it was never that important to begin with.
I dig that.
Yeah, I mean it's fine if you like action stuff. I like exploring stuff and pulling switches. One thing I did really like with the addition of the jump button is the fact that a lot of the dungeons have like very vertical areas or like outside areas that you can kind of climb around and explore on.
Yeah.
That was good.
And then you fall 41 feet and die instantly.
Nah, I'm good. I know what I'm doing. What did you think of the endings?
But they were fine. It's lame that four of them are the same.
They're
It
all
just
the
seems like they
same.
ran out of time and money. Well, they've got cutscenes for the Ronnie one and the fire one.
Yeah, I think Ronnie was the only one they actually really worked on. The fire one's like an obvious bad ending or chaos ending, and then all the rest of them again feels like they were either like replacing the covenants with that kind of stuff, but they didn't actually do any work on them, or
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
At least you get to marry Ronnie in one of them.
Wow, I get to marry Ronnie in all of them in my head canon. Yeah, there's an interesting amount of like lore and backstory stuff that actually kind of works in this. It's just that nothing. I don't know, for as many NPCs as there are and as much dialogue as there is, it feels like nothing really makes much difference to you as the player. Like the player
Yeah.
character as the Tarnish. Like all of the stuff seems like it's going on way over your head and you never really engage with it unless you're actively trying to.
You watch the Vati video stuff?
No, I have not watched any of the new stuff ever since he started doing skits in them.
Respect that.
It's miserable. It's like he's doing machinima now.
Yeah.
No, but I've been watching the Tarnished Archaeologist talking about like direct references like textures and stuff that they stole directly out of like actual archaeological artifacts, which was pretty
Oh
fun.
yeah,
I
yeah,
liked
that's
all
been
of
cool.
that. And I think the overall story is pretty strong. It's just, again, since it's an open world game and you are just kind of meandering aimlessly, which is funny since you're supposed to be guided by Grace, but everyone immediately ignores the guidance anyway.
The guidance didn't really work for me on the first run because it would like, all right, I'm at Castle Moore and Grace has told me to go here. Now what?
Yeah, now it's telling me
I
to
got
go
a
back
sword.
this way. Yeah, that's right. There's nothing really in Castle Morn except for the NPC quest and the sword. Why would it tell you to go there?
I don't know. Really wants you to get the sword, I guess.
It's weird. It feels like a lot of the stuff that wound up being side content was supposed to be like more important, but you can just skip all of it.
I guess it is for the Flame of Frenzy ending, so maybe that's like important enough to guide you towards.
Wait, what's for the Flame of Frenzy ending?
Um, Arena, the girl who dies when you go to Castle Morn, gets possessed by what's her name? The Finger Maiden who's looking for
Hayeda?
yeah, Hayeda. Yeah. They're the same character.
So you have to do that for Hayeda to show up?
You don't have to, but you have to like start the arena quest and then get 2 of the eyes to progress it otherwise.
Yeah, all the NPC quests in this were even worse than Dark Souls 3, which was my previous low as far as side quests were concerned, because it's just impossible to find anything, even with the new map markers that they patched
Yeah, those
in.
help, but it's rough, yeah.
It's just so arbitrary, like the things that you have to do in order to progress them. Like Alexander at least makes sense because you're probably going to most of the areas he shows up, and he's real obvious. uh, but everyone else is just kind of like in a random spot, and you kind of maybe catch a glimpse of them as you ride by, and you go, "Do I really care? Like, I know this guy from high school, but do I really?"
That cleric guy, I just rode past him. I didn't even see him on the road he's hanging out at.
The cleric guy that from the Round Table Hold, or the noble that I was talking to in that clip?
The round table hold guy.
Oh yeah,
Cornus or whatever.
yeah. Yeah, that was a shame. I thought his whole thing would be more interesting. I don't think I ever like fully finished him in the gold mask and all that, but I was hoping for more like weird, sorry, like blasphemy sort of stuff. Especially since one of the main bosses is the Lord of Blasphemy. But it really just feels like everyone's just kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And nobody really cares except for like Death and the Death Hunters. Everyone else is just kind of like, yeah, you guys go have your fun. We're gonna be summoning chaos over here. All right, well don't go over there. That's where the chaos guys are. We're just gonna cede this part of the land to the chaos. It's my blood pressure's going up every time I see these Radagon clips again.
That seems so miserable. Good for you for sticking it out.
I mean, Hoaraloo was so much fun, and he was hard. He's definitely my favorite boss in the game, just in general. The only thing I'd say is I wish that he had 2 full health bars to really enjoy.
Yeah.
That is one weird thing. Like, Melania's the same way. In fact, Melania was bugged back when I first played it. A lot of the time when you knock her down to the second phase, it feels like she was still taking damage during the cutscene from your hitbox or something like that, because she would sometimes end up with like no health in the second phase, which doesn't matter if you choke because she heals it all back, obviously. But
Malekith made me unreasonably angry. I just could not handle him on my casual run.
oh really? His first phase is gives me more trouble than the second one, honestly, because the second one feels really telegraphed in a weird
Huh.
way. The first phase, it feels like he just kind of chucks rocks in your face and you can't do anything and you feel like you're getting bullied again. But yeah, his second phase, like he does like these big moves that are really scary until you realize like, oh, I can just roll. I can just walk behind this pillar now and he'll do his big spinny attack and then I'll punish him.
I guess it was more like I'd be trying to hit him and he'd be jumped away on a pillar halfway across the arena.
Yeah. Yeah, they stole that boss fight from Neo too. There's a giant sickle weasel that you fight that does the same exact thing.
Jeez.
In fact, it's pretty much the same moves. I don't want to say anything, but I mean, Neo 1 was definitely a Souls ripoff, but it's a two-way
Stole it
street
right back.
apparently. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of bosses. Oh, that is one thing I wanted to mention was the overworld bosses that they it feels like they expected you to be on horseback for.
Oh yeah.
I hated that. All the dragons, it's so obnoxious because you know you want to fight them legit, but it's very clear that they expected you to hop on the horse and ride away from like this attack or this attack.
Yeah.
And so when you
Or
do,
just to catch up with them.
yeah, and so when you do fight them on horseback, you realize that all you do is you like pilot yourself around and do R1s and then move to another spot where you can do R1s.
There was an interesting thing with all the reused bosses where after a while they stopped feeling like bosses. It's just, oh, this is just a watchdog barrel. That's an elite, and that's
Yeah.
fine, whatever.
Here's
It's just another dragon.
Here's 2 pumpkin heads. Here's 3 crystallions.
I watched a video that was talking about how in all the old games, like Ornstein and Smo, one would be melee and one would be range, or one would be fast and one would be slow. So you kind of have a difference in how they come at you.
Right.
And in this one, they're just so arbitrarily jammed together that there was no thought put into that, and the Valiant Gargoyles just kind of do whatever.
Well, so there's 2 things about that. One is that they patched that later. They went in and aggressively like changed the AI to try and make basically hard coded so that if you're alone in those fights, only one character is like tagged as aggressive at a time, which they can still stagger hits a little bit, but it's way less shitty than it used to be. But the other thing is that I feel like they really intended for this game to be mostly co-op. And if you couldn't do co-op, then they had all the spirits. And the spirits were like a replacement for the old NPC summon signs and all of that, where it's this whole system where you can like play Pokemon and upgrade the spirits you like. And they didn't really balance it very well even for that consideration, but I think that was the intention behind all of the multi-character bosses. And the problem is that when you first play through this, either you don't have anyone to play with, or you want to try and do it yourself because you want to experience the game, and then you get to triple Crystallion. I think they're triple Rot Crystallion even, which is fun. And it's just so stupid. But yeah, I wasn't too mad about the multiple bosses as much as I was just kind of bored of them after a while. And the boss reuse was really bad in the context of the major bosses that they reused. Like
they reused the Estelle.
Yeah, they reused Estelle, which is one of the like most dramatic and like pivotal bosses Like, obviously you don't need to do them, but
Yeah.
it's so out of place to have a second one just kind of in a totally different area with no fanfare. It feels like when a game would have like a bonus dungeon or something. Like,
yeah.
after the end boss, you go, oh, you fight Dark Astel or something. And you go, oh, this is fine because it's just a video game now. Like, I'm not actually, this isn't story, this isn't anything, this is me enjoying the game, and now I get more of it. But the more of it is, like, between you and the rest of the game in Elden Ring.
I feel like we have to bring up the stupid ulcerated tree spirits everywhere, too.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, that is the lock-on beast redux. If nobody knows what lock-on beast is, it's I think it's called like bloodletting beast or something. It's one of the Bloodborne Chalice dungeon bosses that you have to do to fight Queen Yarnum, which is an actually good boss that requires you to go through a bunch of bullshit to get to her. And one of those bullshit things is a boss that the lock-on point is just so precisely placed that it completely breaks the camera. Like, I cannot describe how bad it is. If you've gotten that far in the Souls series and not broken yourself of needing to lock onto everything, that's the one that has to do it to you, because you cannot fight that boss locked on.
In Elden Ring, there were some bosses that, like the Dragonkin of Noxtella, where they would have the lock-on point and then like a giant belt or something, so you couldn't actually hit them from the front.
Yeah, pumpkin heads do the same thing, where you'll lock onto the head and you'll swing and hit the head, and then even if you hit the body afterwards, it does no damage because you hit the head first, you idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, so this is number 1, right? After we've complained that much about it.
I don't know, like, how are we what point in playing it are we evaluating it from? Because it goes up and down so much.
I am evaluating it from somebody who has beaten it bow only, and I'm torn between putting it at number 1 and number 31 right now.
I feel that.
It's really hard because everyone who has the slightest interest in this has played it already and has probably done a couple runs. So there's no real point in recommending it to anyone or like saying anything about it being, having any particular quality.
And it wasn't like super innovative or anything. It was just big and had a lot of shit in it.
It's like a best hits compilation of all the innovations that From Software games have had, good and bad.
Yeah.
Which means it's not really its own thing, although it is. It's got some stuff that's completely new, but all the completely new stuff. Well, I'm not gonna say all of it sucks, but all of it is pretty polarizing as well.
Mm-hmm. I haven't played a lot of your top ones, so I don't know. It should be like near the top as a good game, but probably not number 1 or one of the best of.
Yeah, so looking at Grimrock 2, for example, Grimrock 2 really is like a major step up from the first game, which itself is like the real revitalization of a genre that doesn't get a lot of attention. And as good as Elden Ring is and as big as it is and fun to play, it's not new, and it's not saving the action role-playing game. It's definitely putting it on the machine for a couple more years. Like,
I don't know. Just put it over Vampire Survivors and I'll be happy.
Well, just over Vampire Survivors is the Vampire Survivors clone that I like better than
Okay.
Vampire Survivors. So I don't
Over
know if
Nomad
that's
Survival then.
I would definitely, I will definitely put it over Flashback. Flashback has gorgeous animations, and that's pretty much it. It's not very good to play through, and the version I played through was probably the worst one that wasn't a remake. Draenus, Draenus also looks very good, plays a lot better. I think I'll put it above Sifu, actually, because Sifu, it's got a similar problem where it's really good beat 'em up, but it wants to be something more than just a beat 'em up, and it would have been way better if it was just a beat 'em up.
Gotcha.
All the roguelite stuff, the skill trees and all that, it just drains out some of the fun from Sifu. And I think Elden Ring does that, but it does it in a way that you're going to white knuckle through it anyway.
Yeah, even when I hated it on my first casual run and I wanted it to be over, I was still trying to finish it.
Yeah. What was that? Hour 130? Okay, Elden Ring's number 6. That's fair enough. It's got plenty of game of the years. It's not getting mine. Alright. I'm gonna run pee, and then I'll be back for, what even is the other game?
Toki Tori 2.
Alright, well, I'll be back.
Alright.
Alright. So, you want to explain yourself?
Alright. Toki Tori 2 is a game that's not Outer Wilds.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know, it's got the same thing going of it's kind of a roguelike where you get different abilities and powers and stuff, but it's all knowledge based. If you know what you're doing, you can really finagle it from the get-go and get to secret areas and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's definitely more true than it was of the Forgotten City, which is another game that was compared directly to Outer Wilds and was a huge letdown. Toki Tori 2 wasn't a huge letdown. I played it before, and it had completely evaporated from my memory. And then people started talking about how it was one of the greatest puzzle games of all time, and one of the greatest examples of recontextualization, which is a concept that I'm really interested in as far as games go. And it does an okay job.
Oh, go on.
It does an okay job. It's just not a thrill ride.
I had the most fun with it with the puzzles that would use elements from multiple sections that you had to combine in interesting ways. So it's not quite as blocked off into discrete levels.
Right. So, like, you have the introductory stuff where you learn the basic function of a particular element, right? Like, you have these guys, which, you know, they go through dark areas and they nullify the masks that kill you otherwise. And there's a bunch of stuff like that, and then once you get through all of that, if you backtrack, for the most part, it's if you backtrack and try and, like, collect more, I don't even know what they are. They're like little puzzle pieces, but they're all the same.
Music notes? Yeah.
No, they're not music notes. They've got, like,
we should see one. Jiggies,
yeah. When you pick up a Jiggy, or go back for ones that you skipped or missed, sometimes they'll kind of show, you'll have to figure out a new aspect of that element. They're wings. Oh, okay, they're like wings from that glyph.
Ah, sure.
Which I never got through. I did not do 100% collection. I didn't even do the like secret temple stuff. I couldn't bring myself to. Whatever you unlock for depositing all of the jiggies into the thing.
You get flight, which is completely useless at that point.
Oh, so it's one of those games where you get 100% and then it goes, congratulations. This would have made 100% way less annoying.
Yeah, there is one cool flight little obstacle course, but yeah, it's stupid otherwise.
Is it like the white temple or
White
whatever?
Palace?
White Palace in Hollow Knight, or is it not that hard?
Not nearly as extreme, no.
Uh, there's some extra puzzles when you have flight.
Did you get all the frogs at least?
Yeah, I collected all the frogs. I got the ending, I guess. And then I said, oh, okay, that was all right. And I moved on with my life. I will say, I already owned it, but I was traveling, so I picked it up on the Switch, and it's a solid Switch game. I'd say it would probably be a good pickup for like travel or stuff. You'd have a lot of puzzles, and there's always the hope that it might be a little more exciting than it actually is someday.
Yeah, you don't seem super impressed by it, just in a general sense.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I wouldn't be because I had played it before and forgotten about it before people started talking about it. And so I knew I probably wouldn't like completely be converted by it. And I wasn't. And I wasn't like totally disgusted by it either. There was one thing that I was really disappointed with, though. That is the whistling.
Like the singing notes?
Yeah. So pretty quickly, like right after I started the game, I was playing around with that. I was like, oh, I can do note, note, note. The fact that it pops up means something. And then I go, oh, if you hold it, it makes a bigger note. And then I kind of trial and errored some of the functions that you unlock by singing a song. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I bet if I screwed around, I could figure out some things and, sort of like Outer Wilds or any of those other games with recontextualization, I could, crack some codes early.
Yeah.
The problem is none of those songs are actually anything. They're all just like functions that you would otherwise have in like the menu or like on a hotkey.
Yeah.
You have quick save, quick load. You have photo mode. that's
very useful.
That's pretty much it.
What do you think about like the strength of it as a puzzle game that only has 2 buttons?
It's fine. I've played a lot of flash puzzle games. I've played a lot of stuff that has a similar sort of gimmick, and it was okay. Like nothing about it was like really irritating. One thing I thought was nice was that they seemed to do a pretty good job of making things, even if they seemed like they would be really finicky or require a lot of precision, you don't actually have a lot of precision because the secret, it looks like you're moving fluidly, but you're not. It's actually tile based. It's just the grid is invisible. So, if you bump an enemy that you need to bump in a certain direction within this like chunk, then it'll go where you want it to go.
And there is timing stuff, but not really any dexterity challenges at all where you need to be super precise with it.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this because did you ever play Crosscode?
Nope.
So Crosscode's a top-down action RPG, sort of in a 16-bit style, and I think it's really, really good. It's also one of those games that's sort of like Elden Ring, and it's way too long for its own good.
Sure.
And the pacing early on is pretty bad, but other than that, like I think it's an amazing game. But there's I just lost my train of thought. I don't know what we were talking about that I would bring up Crosscode. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know.
this is kind of embarrassing. What were we talking about right before I brought that up?
The 2-button thing?
Oh yeah. Uh, I just thought of it now. So talking about the fact that it's limited controls. I've been thinking about that a lot since Crosscode. At some point, somebody who was playing through it while it was still in development mentioned that the puzzles. We were talking about how finicky the puzzles aren't secretly, and somebody playing through that through Crosscode made a note, because it's got a lot of like puzzles where you shoot something at an angle and it bounces and lands into a receptor, and it gets more and more complicated as the game goes on. But the secret is that almost all of the angles you actually have to take, even though you can do like crazy banks and like, obtuse angle into acute angle, all of the angles that you actually have to do are either 90-degree angles or 45s at worst. And you just have to like take a wide look at the arena and figure out, okay, this is where I'm actually supposed to stand to do this, and then I just have to do a hard lock 45-degree angle, which is really easy. And they did a really good job of maintaining that. But there was still some timing stuff involved. And at some point, someone said, I really like this game. I love how long the dungeons are and how complex the puzzles are. But the problem is, I have... can't remember what it was he had. He had like muscular dystrophy or something like that, or ADS or something. And he was like, I just can't, like, pull off all of these things fast enough to get through some of these dungeons. And to his credit, he said, not like you need to fix this, but does anyone have a save after this part of the dungeon so that I can keep playing? And a bunch of people offered, and then the developer was like, oh, you know what, there might be a solution here. And so they patched in a slider which adjusts the speed that the puzzles run at, basically, and you can crank it all the way down until there's no timing required for the puzzles if you need it.
What a good accessibility option.
Yeah, and it was pretty impressive because the same devs claimed that they couldn't have key rebinding for the longest time because they were making the game in HTML5.
Oh no.
But eventually all of that got sorted out. And that reminded me of that because it's similar in this, where there's a little bit of timing, but it's nothing that would stress muscular dystrophy guy or anything like that. So, yeah, as a puzzle game, it's a puzzle game. I've made this clear before. I'm not a huge fan of puzzle games in general. Like, I'll play through them, but I think I like the idea of them more than actually playing most of them.
Are there any other games like Outer Wilds and this where it's all emergent personal knowledge that you really do like?
I don't know how many games that have had the unlocking be purely knowledge, other than Myst, the first Myst, which is probably the worst example you could possibly think of, where you just, like, you can beat the game in 30 seconds if you memorize a single, 2D code.
Yep.
There's lots of games that have recontextualization in conjunction with other mechanics that I think are really good. I got you Superland last year, right? Did you ever play that?
Yeah, I played through like half of it.
So it didn't click.
I was liking it. I don't know, I was playing it with someone and we need to like kind of get back into it together, but there were some frustrating things about it.
Did you figure out that you needed to turn off depth of field?
No.
Oh, it's so bad in that game. The depth of field setting is super aggressive, and like the whole game is about you like being small and seeing like big things off in the distance, but you can't see any of them because you're so nearsighted with the default depth of field settings. So everything looks just like a blurry mess.
I'll try that next time.
Yeah.
I did enjoy, they've got little jokes like the NPC that's an atheist, he doesn't believe in child god, and then right behind him you can see the giant child playing.
Right, if you have depth of field turned off. Yeah, it's a little too jokey for its own good at some points. But the jokes never get in the way of the actual gameplay, luckily. It's got Trump jokes, which are super timely now. And then it's got the whole weird system early on where it's like DLC quest, where you go out and you get coins to buy upgrades that let you get more coins, and that's like the first like 5% of the game, and then it kind of drops that whole thing.
Yeah, the combat seemed like something you outgrew in kind of a weird way.
Yeah, it keeps trying to make it relevant later on, but it never really does. I didn't like the DLC that much for it. And there's a second DLC that I haven't even looked at. So, I don't know. I just thought the base game was pretty interesting because, like I said, there's a lot of recontextualization of different elements, especially environmental ones. Which I don't know if you got far enough to really see much of that.
I think I got to the town where we were changing the colors of things. I don't know if I got much further.
Oh, yeah. Where they've got, like, the dye shop and...
Yeah.
A whole game about...
Or no, not a dye shop. It was, like, a machine where you would put an object in.
Right.
And then that would set the color.
I said shop because you get the items from somebody who has, like, a little kiosk set up, and... I for some reason, I thought they had the dye machine, too. Yeah, I'd say the base game is worth trying to get through the rest of it.
Okay.
There's definitely some interesting moments later on. That
I'll pick it back up.
I think we'll have you saying, "Oh, this is just like the Forgotten City." You didn't buy that, by the way, did you?
No.
I've
only watched.
I distinctly
YouTubers.
remember I brought it up last year when we were talking about Outer Wilds, and I was like, "That's dog shit," and you go, "Oh no," and I was like, "You didn't play that?" No, but I thought it would be good. It is not.
I want it to be good. I want more games like Outer Wilds.
Yeah. So you want more games with time loops, is what you're saying?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed by the Sexy Brutale.
Yeah, I didn't play that. I'd seen it, and I was like, eh.
It's a time loop game, but they never let you do like the full loop where you save everyone. It's just not allowed.
Yeah, that's never great. From what you mentioned of it, I thought it sounded a lot like Gregory Horror Show. You aware of that?
Not at all.
It's a PS2 game that's based on I think it's a Japanese cartoon. I don't know, my memory of what it actually is from is pretty hazy, but the idea is you wake up in this mansion full of dead spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's basically like a Hotel California sort of thing where you're like trapped in this purgatory, and the only way out is to free all of the dead spirits. And all of the dead spirits have been stolen by the inhabitants of the hotel.
Huh.
Who all have their own little quirks. They're all like kind of puppets that have like little backstories and likes and dislikes and schedules. And so you've got this one part where it's sort of like a Resident Evil sort of thing where you're exploring and getting herbs to mix together to make healing items. and finding keys to unlock doors that have other keys or levers in them.
Sure.
But then the other part is you're spying on the different patrons, so that you can figure out how to trick, like steal the soul back out of away from them, and let it go free. And then once you do that, they become basically like Mr. X from Resident Evil, and they'll like wander around the hotel looking for you, and if they find you, they'll chase you and try and kill you and steal the soul back.
That sounds kind of cool.
It's definitely worth looking up. Sort of, it's like that and Tulip, I think, are like some of those games that are just so weird that it's worth looking, even if it's not a good game.
Yeah. Interesting, at least.
Yeah, yeah. I was really strongly reminded of that by what you said of Sexy Brutale. So the water stuff in this, in Tokitori,
Mm-hmm.
you never get the ability to breathe underwater
Nope. It is just dead ends and drowning.
or swim. You never even learn a song that gives you water breath.
You are too fat.
And for that, it is a failure as a Metroidvania.
Yeah, the clip that's showing right now where like you fall into just a tiny little pool and can't do anything.
Yeah, yeah. You can whistle, but your notes are being ensheathed in bubbles, and so they don't actually play. So you can't even load out of that.
Should float to the surface and then the note should play.
It should, yeah. Tokitori never even gets a double jump. Never even a single jump. Yeah. Yeah, he gets a butt stomp, he can sing, and he can walk off ledges, and that is Tokitori 2. I heard the first Tokitori was really bad.
It is just a very simple, uninteresting 2D puzzle game.
What do you think made them make the jump from that to this idea? Because this is a solid idea.
I don't know. Like you say, there aren't a lot of other games like that where it's all knowledge-based, but I'm glad they did.
Yeah. It's alright.
I feel like I'm gonna want to rate it higher than you will.
I think that's almost certain. Now, the question is, does it go higher than Infra? And Sheslop's not here to defend himself.
I'd want to say, too, I like seeing Tunic, Haiku, and Metroid Dread just at the bottom. Bad year for Metroidvanias.
Did you play any of those?
No, I saw reviews, and they all seemed pretty bad.
Tunic, I think, is similar to this in that a lot of people seem to want it to be a bigger deal than it actually is. It's hard to talk about Tunic without real big spoilers, because that's its entire gimmick, is that you... I guess that would be another one that you were looking for, where a lot of the progress is just you learning things about how the game actually works. Mm-hmm. But the reason I didn't recommend it, and the reason it didn't come up when I was thinking about it, is it doesn't do it very well, and it all feels really artificial. So it's like somebody, who's into game development and knows all of these, same touch points that we're talking about, and said, oh, I should make a game like that, and starts from there. But they can't really grasp why it works in these cases.
The thing I heard in specific was that it's like Trine, where you want to play the game, but it makes you do really bad, annoying combat all the time instead.
Yeah, that's another aspect of it. I mean, even beyond that, it's still not great. But yeah, the combat is... it's just really bare bones, and at the same time pretty frustrating. I only ever played the first Shrine, so I don't know how the trilogy went, but
Oh, there's a trilogy, jeez.
yeah, I feel the same way. Like every time I see like Crisis 3 exists, I'm like, oh right, they made Crisis 2. I forgot they made a sequel to Crisis and a second sequel. I feel the same way about Shrine. But yeah, Tunic I would not recommend. It's kind of up its own ass and it's not very fun to play. And even though it does technically have that special magic that we're talking about, the recontextualization, it 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 just kind of sucks. It just kind of sucks. It's like a high school play. It's like a high school production of Hamlet.
High school production of Silk Song.
Well, they would never get it out before the year was over. Do you think Silk Song's coming out this year? And by this year, I mean 2023?
I'm going to choose to believe that to give myself hope.
Okay. That's fair enough. Alright. It's definitely better than Tunic.
Is it better than Jets and Guns 2?
Jets and Guns 2 is another game that I thought I would like more than I did. I don't know. Do you have any fondness for Tyrion or Euro
Tyrion?
Shmups? Yeah, Euro Shmups.
I don't know.
You never played it?
Nope, Tyrion just makes me think of Game of Thrones. I'm a normie.
I don't watch TV.
Let's see. What do you think about this game compared to Death Stranding?
Oh, I like Death Stranding way better. Death Stranding is it's the dawn of the age of the Strand type games. However, I will note that as I mentioned when I rated that with or ranked that with Sheeslop, this is not the ranking for Death Stranding. This is the ranking for the director's cut of Death Stranding, where he added a race car and and some Cyberpunk 2077 tie-in missions.
Oh, jeez.
And there's even more talking. You haven't done Archelos yet, have you? No, I haven't done Archelos yet because everybody tried to get in on that one, so I have no idea what I'm actually going to do about it. Everyone played Archelos last year because it was a free mod for a game that everyone owns. So what did you think of Archelos?
Are you asking me or Prower or Gumball Dad? I have not played Archelos.
Oh, incredible. You're probably the only person.
What is it a mod for, even?
Gothic 2. It's a total overhaul for Gothic 2. Well, Gothic 2 Gold, technically. And you can download, if you own Gothic 2 on Steam, you can download it straight off of Steam, just like those German overhaul mods for Oblivion and Skyrim.
Okay.
One caveat, it's all in Polish.
I see.
Obviously, there's an English translation for the text, but if you want voice acting, it's all Polish. And honestly, that wound up being a big selling point to me. I thought it was really well done for being in a language that I have no understanding of.
Take that.
What is it he says? Janky. That means okay. Or like, I'm good. Because he says it all the time, your main character in that game. Why do I even own Gothic 2? Because it's one of the greatest games of all time. That's not very good, but everyone has it.
I have never played it.
You never even played any of the Gothics?
Nope.
That's too bad. There's a lot of recontextualization where you see an enemy and you can't remotely kill it, and then you come back later and you can kill it and steal what's behind it.
Ah, cool.
So yeah, I don't know. Even Death Stranding director's cut. It's tough to talk about some of these games because some of them aren't really games. Like Black Baron MD is a port of a game book. And it's not even a good game book. Like it's not even Lone Wolf. It's the multiplayer, the attempt to make a multiplayer game book.
Well, I say we put Toki Tori at number 21, directly over Infra as a troll.
I like the way you think. That's where it's going. Toki Tori 2. Well, Toki Tori 2 Plus. I forgot about that. I don't know what the plus means. It meant Shack all to me, but... Well, that's it. That's all you're on the hook for. Unless you got anything else that you played on here or want to chime in on.
No, you've played a lot of games that I have not even heard of. Which is how it normally goes, I think.
Even Pentiment?
Pentiment I have heard of, but so that one did pretty well critically, but it was so panned on like Bad Game and by my friends that I haven't gone to it yet.
You know why? Because people on Bad Game have read a book in their life. They're not blown away by the idea of someone being literate. And that's only barely a little bit of snark from me.
Fair enough.
Weren't you a Baba Is You person? No, I rate Baba Is You pretty... Wait, did I rate Baba Is You? Did I do that last year? Oh no, I do have Baba Is You on here. You want to knock that out? Or do you not have time?
I have time. You played Baba Is You for the first time this year?
Well, no. I had played most of it last year and then set it aside, and I came back and quote-unquote finished it this year. Because I really wanted to get through it, and I've said it a lot. I'm not that into puzzle games. I like the idea of them more than the actual playing of them often. And Baba Is You is honestly a great puzzle game. Like, it's a great idea. Yeah. The style is really lame, but it's fine. I'm not mad that the style's lame.
It is functional.
Well, it's more than functional. It's actually got a little bit of style to it, which isn't rare in puzzle games, but it is rare that it's a style that isn't gross. That is also functional.
So I don't want to spoil it too much, but did you get through all the meta stuff?
No, I got through some of it. Like I figured out how to make like new levels out of objects on the map, and I got to another layer of that, which is a whole world where you make objects on the overworld into new levels, and you are different things on the overworld. And then I unlocked an orb or something, and I was like, and I got an achievement for that, and I was like, oh, this is some secret, probably for some other thing later on. And then that's when I set the game aside for like almost a year. And and then I said, well, I've almost beaten this, surely. And so I came back and I beat it. So no, I don't think I got through all of the meta stuff. I did hear a rumor that there's like a 3D thing at some point, or...
That is the DLC, and that physically hurt me to look at, and I hated it so much.
Was it like bad as far as being a puzzle game at that point, or was it just grotesque?
I just, yeah, I couldn't tell you about the content of the puzzles.
Fair enough. Um, Baba Is You. Let's see. It's hard to talk about without like just laying out each and every mechanic of it. uh, it's a really interesting gimmick. I guess the gimmick is just that all of the constraints of the game world are verbalized right in front of you, and you can manipulate them, and that's pretty much the entire game. Right?
I think it does a good job with recontextualization, where it'll have a simple version of a level and then a complicated version where they take out kind of the obvious answer and make you really understand how things work to get through it.
That's true. It fell a little flat for me as far as like, what we're always talking about with recontextualization, which is a word that I use a lot because I can pronounce it very easily, and it makes a lot of people stumble, and then I feel better about myself.
There you go.
But yeah, it fell a little flat to me because it is in the context. There I go. It is in the context of a puzzle game where you go through and you solve individual puzzles. And so you do have that thing where you get introduced to the base layer of the concept of some element, and then you learn about the rest of it. But they're pretty discreetly packaged, and so it never really feels like you're discovering something so much as it is you're solving the next level of puzzle.
I dig that. I think the meta stuff is where it really got interconnected, and
it was too much. It was like Elden Ring levels of too much stuff going on.
It's insane, but it was great. I don't think I actually beat the end level. I've just gotten through the meta ending.
No, you didn't. I don't even remember what I remember the last one that really got me stuck was something to do with the conveyor belts. And just like the conveyor belts in CHR $, like, the problem is some of the level elements just don't work in a way that's easy to conceptualize.
I know what you mean.
So, like, the fact that you're pushing around conveyor belts and things can move on top of them, but they can't move on top of them while it's able to be pushed, because then it's also pushing everything around it. And so you have to do stuff, to get them into place and then make them not push so that you can push something on them, but then they have to be shift in order for them to move. But then if you push them in a different direction, then it fucks up which way they're moving stuff when you do make them shift.
Yeah.
And I wound up just feeling like I would rather be playing Sokoban. But then there's like clever stuff. I only have like a couple clips of this because this is not a great game to clip. Because for one thing, it's all spoilers if you're actually solving anything. I did really like the one gimmick that they built on in one set of levels where there were actual letters, like full letters, and you had to spell stuff out. I was so thrilled by that, even though the puzzles weren't really that much better. But I did really like being able to spell out Baba is homo. and it actually made him homo. You couldn't see any change, but
you knew.
Yeah.
It's a little thing, but I really appreciate the rewind system, how you can just go back step by step. I only wish they had like save states for that too.
Infinite rewind is a necessity at this point. Don't go building that up like it's 1991 and you're playing Drod 1.
I mean, it wasn't in Tokitori. You had to redo a lot of puzzles in that one.
Well, Tokitori 2 is a roguelite, so you had permadeath in that.
There you go.
Have you played the Drod games, by the way, since I brought that up?
I have not. What are they like?
They are puzzle games. they're probably the most dense single puzzle games that I think I've ever seen. They have it's all tile based. You're for the most part you're a guy who holds a sword out, and the sword occupies a tile adjacent or diagonal to him depending on which way he's facing.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk around walking on things, bumping into stuff, and most importantly, holding your sword in a certain direction in order to manipulate all the different level elements. And the game's been around for so long and has had so many expansions and iterations that it's probably got the most exhaustive and exhausting list of elements, puzzle elements, in any puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them basically require you to have like a doctorate in mathematics for you to actually understand how they actually work. Not that they're like it's an actual math puzzle, but the way that the pathing for certain things, like certain enemies will have AI pathing, and you'll be expected to know or intuit or just brute force figure out how to get them to move in a certain way. But the only way to actually understand what you're doing is if you know like how to do certain like distance calculations mathematically.
Sure.
Which is pretty frustrating. But on the other hand, the game also has level sets that are made to be beaten by like 10-year-olds. So it's got a wide range, and it's also one of the only puzzle games that has an actually active community. There are people still to this day making whole like other games within Drod, not like ZZT style making whole other games, but using the same elements and making like really interesting puzzles and stuff, and having competitions with each other about them. So I'd say you might want to check out at least one of those, but the reason I brought that up is don't start with the first one, because the first one does not have infinite rewind. It has one turn rewind. Oof. And it's DROD. Deadly Runes of Death. And there's some of them on Steam, there's some of them on GOG. Let me see what's actually on Steam here. So I think the Second Sky would probably be a good place to start. King Dugan's Dungeon is the first game, and it is really obnoxious. Just the puzzle design is not good. It's very repetitive puzzles. And it's just a grind. I don't think I've ever finished it. I don't think many people have actually finished it, because there's just some nightmare runes in it. But Second Sky, Gunthrow and the Epic Blunder is sort of like a prequel that's like sort of more for kids. And then it's got all these Smite Masters selection things that are like DLC packs. Journey to Rooted Hold's really good too. I think Second Sky was the last like main game that came out. And then Drod RPG is a totally different thing. It's like a Tower of the Sorceress and or Tactical Nexus style game, which requires even more math.
Oh, there's a million of those, huh?
Yeah. And then on top of that, if you go to Caravelnet, that's the actual developer. They have a forums where people are constantly uploading like user-made stuff.
I like the old internet aesthetic of this.
Yeah, well, it is genuinely old internet. It's not an aesthetic choice. That site's probably been around since like '97.
It's talking about Flash.
Yep.
Well, just rambling about puzzle games, I bounced off of La Mulana hard earlier this year.
Yeah, La Mulana is not really a puzzle game though. It's more like the old microcomputer style of RPG, which seems like a puzzle game on the face of it because that's how you do progression in those kinds of games where the numbers are pretty meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
And La Mulana definitely goes harder into the puzzle stuff, but I wouldn't call it a puzzle game. Like, there's definitely puzzles in it, and they're like crucial to you getting through. But there's a lot of other stuff going on, and a lot of it's pretty distracting from the actual puzzles. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people liked it, but it's not. If you're looking for a puzzle game, I wouldn't say La Mulana.
What makes it not a puzzle game? Because that seemed like the core thing of it was figuring out how to advance in each level.
The fact that you have mini bosses that can whoop your ass, like repeatedly. And also the fact that you have like instant death traps.
Yeah.
That are tied to the puzzles. Like, the puzzles are central to the instant death traps, but that doesn't make it a puzzle game.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's really more like an action adventure with really, really brutal puzzles.
Makes sense.
So I would say you should maybe give it a little bit of time and then go back and try and get through it again, or at least get further to see if like it starts to click with you and you want to press on, because it does get more and more layers of stuff onto it. It does a better job of that than like Tunic, for example. Tunic tries to do something like that, but it winds up just being like The Witness over and over.
I do enjoy they give you a gun to just, I don't want to figure this one out, I will shoot the boss.
Yeah, that's a really great move. More things need to have that, like have the gun as like a gun and not like, oh, a bad weapon that you also get.
Yeah.
Alright, Baba Is You. Would you put it above Tokitori 2 Plus?
Oh, yes. Tokitori 2 is more interesting conceptually, I think, just because of the limitations and knowledge, but Baba is a really good puzzle game.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think if anyone is into puzzle games, at least more so than I am, Baba's probably a must-play. And again, it's probably one that everyone has played.
Yeah.
But I think it's still worth the nod for that. Wishlayer's kind of similar. It's got I guess it's not really that similar, thinking about it now. But I liked it. It was, again, kind of a reference back to older console systems and stuff like that. But it wasn't outstanding. It was cute. I'd say it goes above that. It goes above Night's End, probably. Vampire Survivors and Nomad Survival. You played Vampire Survivors, I'm assuming.
No, I think I'm allergic to it. I don't know if I want to really
Can I ask you a personal question? Do you not have any podcasts that you have to listen to weekly?
I don't listen to podcasts because I'm never in a situation where like my hands are free, but I'm kind of partially engaged.
I don't know what you mean by that. There are people right now listening to this who are probably playing Vampire Survivors, and there's only like 4 people actually listening here.
I saw Jury playing Marvel Snap popped up on your Steam notification.
That's why I left it up, baby. That is caught for all time.
So yeah, I don't know. I cannot neutrally evaluate Vampire or Nomad. but it feels like Baba should go somewhere around there.
I am going to put it right above Vampire Survivors and right below Nomad Survival. And
Fair.
that is just to rub it in on people who think Vampire Survivors is the only podcast game that is worth playing, because
All right.
none of them are really worth playing. They're just something you're doing to waste some time, and Nomad Survival is more fun to me.
Why do you like Nomad more than Vampire?
You get more options with how crazy it gets and how much you can AFK. One thing with Vampire Survivors is there's basically just one system that makes or that complicates the game, which is you level stuff up and you pick what stuff you get equipped with, and you have limited slots. The only complication is that some weapons, or most weapons now at this point, if you have the corresponding passive equipment also on you when you max it out, then it can evolve into a more powerful weapon. And that's an interesting thing the first time you find each one of them. But the problem is that, for the most part, the game's not really scaled to handle more than one evolved weapon. And so as soon as you know what the weapon evolutions are and can kind of pick and choose what you're doing, it's really easy to get into a situation where you just kind of AFK the last, 10 minutes.
Sure.
Nomad Survival, obviously, it's the same type of game, so you can do the same sort of thing. But when you start up a run, you have a lot more options for, increasing enemy health and speed, decreasing your own health, speed, or damage, doing stuff. And then there's more interesting toggles, every map has, events that happen at certain thresholds of the timer, and you can ramp those up so that they're, happening constantly or are more deadly, and you have to, move around a lot more to avoid them. And my favorite one is gives every enemy the ability to fire projectiles, which basically just turns it into
bullet hell.
Yeah, a little bit of a bullet hell, where you're constantly moving and dodging through patterns and also trying to kill a bunch of stuff really quickly.
Okay. I feel like that's how every game should do difficulty. Just a bunch of discrete toggles.
Yeah.
So you can put the stuff on you want.
Yeah. Which, that's sort of coming back, like I said, with Crosscode and the accessibility settings thing. A lot of people are complaining now about the gaming journalist thing of Elden Ring needs an easy mode, or
Has an easy mode.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about the jumping R2s because it is so bad, but so I think what's being missed in all of that is that there is some legitimate accessibility stuff that is so trivial that it really you shouldn't be releasing a game if you're not prepared to handle that sort of thing. One thing, especially in the context of puzzle games, that I think about a lot is just color blindness.
Yeah.
You shouldn't make things just purely coded by color, because some people can't see color. And that's a pretty easy fix. Even Tactical Nexus handled that, and that's literally one autistic Japanese guy who's coding in an engine from 20 years ago that was made specifically to teach fifth graders how to code.
For accessibility, I always think of Celeste, which was designed to be a hard game, but you can do whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah, that one I kind of feel a little on, because if you literally just have cheat codes to give yourself and the thing that I thought was funny was that apparently the story of the game is about overcoming challenges and finding the strength to get through hardship. And there's so many people who are it's a great game because I can just ignore all the challenge and just enjoy the story.
You and I aren't gonna turn on no damage and infinite dashes or whatever.
I fucking
It'll
would.
still be
I
a hard
fucking would.
game.
I hate Spike Dodger platformers, and that's why I call them. I don't call them Masocore anymore. I call them Spike Dodger platformers. In unity with my brother Sheeslop, who calls cinematic platformers step platformers.
Sure.
Yeah. Celeste for the win. No, there's another one, huh? So, what is this?
Number 12, Baba is you.
Baba is you. That's fair enough. It's a good game, especially if you're really into puzzle games. And I think it does enough that most puzzle games don't even attempt. It's got layers.
You seem to play a fair few puzzle games for self-admittedly not liking them.
But like I said, I like the idea of them a lot more than I like actually playing most of them, and so I wind up tricking myself into thinking, oh, this is the one that I'll really enjoy.
Gotcha.
Did you, speaking of that, a Monsters Expedition Through Puzzling Exhibitions. Did you see this one?
I have not heard of that one.
It's a very cute one, and the whole thing, you'll like this, it's only got really one element, which is you push trees down, and they turn into logs that you can roll around.
Huh.
And you make your way through a bunch of islands, trying to connect them with bridges and rafts made out of logs that you push around, and that's it. And then interspersed in that is very British humor.
That sounds pretty chill.
It's extremely chill. I'll tell you how chill it is. I fell asleep repeatedly while playing it. That's not a joke. That's not for comedic effect. I'm exaggerating a little bit. I literally fell asleep multiple times while trying to, like, look at an island in this game. And they're not big islands. But you might like it. And again, yeah, it's sort of Steven's sausage roll, but you're not hungry the whole time, you're just sleepy.
Okay.
And then, what's the other one? Bean?
Bean.
Bean and Nothingness. This is another big one for, real hardcore puzzle heads lately. This is sort of like Drawd combined with A Boy and His Blob.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Basically, you get a bunch of beans and you have a laser. And when there's a certain combination of beans on the floor and you shoot the laser at it, it turns into a monster. And all the monsters have their own little behaviors and gimmicks, and there's pressure plates and rocks to break and dozens and dozens and dozens of things to figure out. Different interactions.
Does sound cool.
So I'd say maybe take a look at that.
Yeah, that, your Drawd, and what was the Monster Expedition thing?
Monsters Expedition Through Monstrous Exhibitions.
Yeah. Well, few puzzles to check out.
Yeah. So, there's nothing else here you said that you'd actually played.
Nope, I think this is about where I head off, but it's been a lot of fun.
Alright. Well, thank you for showing up.
Thank you for having me. See you around.
See ya. Where's the cancel button? There we go. Well, that's done. I didn't think I'd get Baba out of the way. I forgot that Ian had played that. So, pretty good. I did place it right. Baba is, yes. Yeah. Get beaned. Well, I think I'm gonna call it for now. But thanks again to Ian for showing up. I don't think anyone else had anything that's here had anything lined up. I'm gonna have to grab Big Biceps some morning, I think, and get a hold of him.